All right. Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to the Silicon Valley's forum on the Inclusive Leadership Forum. Putting people first during COVID-19 and beyond. Is your company ready to return? My name is Matt Mayhood. I'm president and CEO of the Silicon Valley organization, and I am very pleased to be here today along with our team from the Silicon Valley Forum. They are now a division of the Silicon Valley Forum, also known, thanks Denise, as the SVO. We like to go by that for short. We are the region's oldest and largest chamber of commerce. We've been around since 1886, and we partnered and joined forces with Silicon Valley Forum earlier this year because honestly, it just made a lot of sense with their mission and their focus in the entrepreneur and innovation space and our work throughout the Silicon Valley with industries across all sectors and businesses, small, medium, and large. It just made sense to really make this marriage. So really pleased to be partnered with Silicon Valley Forum moving forward. Our main mission is to foster regional economic prosperity. And we have a fundamental belief that when businesses succeed, our communities thrive. So we do that through a whole bunch of stuff: advocacy, networking, economic development, community development, and political action. And our partnership with SV Forum is really focused on the economic development side, business retention, expansion, and really helping grow our own economy here in Silicon Valley. So great to be here, great to be partnered with SV Forum. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the SV Forum team for the rest of the panel. Thank you and enjoy.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks again to everyone joining us today. My name is Denise Cardozo, and I am the Executive Director. And before we get started, I would like to tell you a little bit more about Silicon Valley Forum. So we are a 37-year-old nonprofit supporting the global startup and technology ecosystem. So we organize over 50 programs and events per year, including innovation programs and boot camps for startups and executives, technology and innovation programs and conferences, including our upcoming and annual Women in Tech Festival, which will be happening this year on November 12th and 13th. So after today's program, please head on over to our website and grab your ticket. We also do program series for female founders, women in STEM, and of course, our Inclusive Leadership Forum, which is today's program, where we focus on people, teams, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you want to find out more about the many other programs and events that we do, as well as sponsorship information, please visit our website at siliconvalleyforum.com. Today, we have two incredible speakers joining us. We have Pat Wadors, who is the Chief Talent Officer and CHRO of ServiceNow, and Eva Sage Gavin, Senior Managing Director of Global Talent, Human Potential Practice at Accenture. And of course, we are delighted to bring back Chris Ye, author, mentor, investor, and host of other things, including my dear friend, who will lead this conversation. So Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you now, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Denise. And I figure what we should probably do is, just so we can see the beautiful faces. There we go. Perfect. I wanted to make sure we got to see the beautiful faces of our guests. So thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy travel schedules to be here with us today. You are really in for a treat. Both Pat and Eva are folks that I've known for quite some time, and they are incredible powerhouses, and I'm so glad that you're going to get a chance to learn more about them and to hear from them. This is going to be a different kind of discussion. It's really going to be a conversation, and we're going to dive into trying to be as real and human as possible, right? This is not a chance for us to spout a bunch of corporate stuff. It's a chance for us as human beings to really wrestle with some of the things we're wrestling with. And today's topic is really about what's going to happen as we progress through this COVID-19 pandemic, and especially as we figure out how we're going to return to work as we exit the summer. Now, obviously, there's a lot of practicalities we have to think about. I think all of us have learned more than we ever needed to know about aerosols, about hand sanitizers, personal protective equipment. I mean, I'd never even heard the term personal protective equipment before this pandemic. And now I've got boxes and stuff stored around the house. And of course, Pat and Eva are going to be able to give us some great tips in that regard. But I thought I'd start out by asking them about something that is, I think, overlooked, which is the emotional side of getting through this. This has been a really tough 6-7 months. And I feel like sometimes we don't really take the time to really mourn the kinds of losses that we've had, the things that we've missed out on. I know, for example, my family missed out on a trip to Disney World. That's the sort of thing that, makes kids sad. And of course, they've had to soldier on, but that's something that they're missing out on. I'm sure all of you out there have had something that you've missed out on as well. So I would open it up to Pat and Eva to talk about what should we be doing for our people as we're going through this so that they can process the emotions and feeling of loss and mourning.
To jump in, and Eva, you always have such wisdom. Chris, for us and for any employee, I find that employers that communicate often with transparency about what's happening with the business, how do you return to office, how do you keep them safe mentally and physically, listening to their feedback and adapting to their needs. And you see it. You see companies adding more programs, helping parents with tutoring.
Pat, quick question. Is anyone else having difficulty hearing Pat? Somebody just asked that chat. Something's happened to your audio, Pat. I don't know if you're farther from the microphone, but if you can get a little bit closer just to be safe, that would be wonderful.
How is that?
Much better.
All right, I'm going to lean in. So that'll work. So what we've done is listen. We listened a lot to our employees. We listened to what their challenges with family and tutoring. So we recommended staycations. Take your time. In the first few months, Chris, 50% of our employees didn't take vacation. They had nowhere to go. No Disney. And you're like, but there's so many things you can do in your own backyard. So many hobbies, crafts that you can learn, play an instrument, take a hike, be physically distanced from others, but be safe and care for others. So we've been teaching, guiding, creating flexible programs, and adapting. There's no one size that fits all. Eva, what would you do?
Great, Pat. And by the way, we're still having a little bit of audio trouble. So while Eva's talking, if you can sort of muck around a little bit and see what you can do, that'd be great. Sort of like Chewbacca, locking down the Millennium Falcon.
Only you, Chris, would come up with that. That is awesome. How's my sound? Are you good? Excellent, thank you. So let's go back to where you were talking about the emotional side of this, and I loved your example about Disneyland. I used to work for Disney, so thank you for pulling that out. But you're bringing up a really important point, and let's go deep on that. I just took a look before we joined today about the huge impact on parents and children, and back to the idea that everything we knew of that were support systems that allowed us to be able to operate successfully are now disrupted. I just was looking at some numbers today. When back to work collides with back to school, there was a podcast yesterday talking about the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on working parents, the pressure of, in some cases, people are getting up at 3 and 4 a.m. trying to fit things in. Parents are doing split schedules, and depending on the age, the idea of trying to do 6 hours online for a little one is really tough. So this idea of what are the support systems to deal with the emotional anxiety and stress, your deliverables at work, particularly if you're in a technology essential role where you really need to be connected with clients or customers, heaven forbid if you're in a patient support role. And what are we seeing out there? We are seeing a lot of different approaches that use the power of technology, but we're also seeing a lot of need that's unmet. What we are finding out is that when people do double down and invest at this really basic level of can you be able to connect, to be able to do your job, is your family taken care of, and are your kids advancing with some kind of an education surround system? Those are really basic needs that most people are facing right now. We've done some work with Thrive, Global Thrive, with Ariana Huffington on Thriving Minds, and had expected that some number of people, 1 out of 10 might take advantage of that. We were shocked, Chris, to find out that people are taking advantage of it at a much greater rate. So we all talk amongst ourselves about, and you said to be real, so I'm going for it. The COVID impact. I've been hearing the, pandemic 15. I've been hearing, you're either a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk. But the idea that when things are hitting you with stress, some people are working out more. That's the hunk. Some are eating more. I'll leave you to guess. And then, of course, I hear from my consumer friends that wine consumption's up 42%. So we're trying really hard, as Pat said, to think about the whole person, transparency, but really creative problem solving to be able to get to that family or that individual or that couple, to be able to give them a work schedule with as much flexibility to deal with the reality, and then any tools or resources we can command to make them available to them to navigate this really, really tumultuous time. And Thriving Minds is one that we're finding a lot of incredible synergy and return with people going through various exercises from breathing and meditation all the way to other things they can do online to just help them get through each stage of this tough period.
Now, I can't let that go past without involving our audience. So audience members, use the chat and let us know right now, are you in the hunk category, the chunk category, or the drunk category to date? Not like this exact minute. I'm hoping that you're not fitting into the drunk category this exact minute, but no judgment. Hunk, chunk, or drunk. And yeah, you could take two by all means. So I see Karen's hunk and drunk. Bruce is in the hunk category, exercising more. Good for you. Pat, yeah, okay, a bit drunk, hunk. Wow, we got a lot of hunks. This is really cool. I am surprised. Eva, what is the proportion of hunk, chunk, and drunk that you've seen out there?
Well, this comes back to Pat's point about transparency and authenticity. I think that I find in this group, it's straight on. I love the, sorry, Matt broke his femur, but he just told us he had a huge hike. We have a new category though. Kathy is saying half junk, and Carrie lost 11 pounds. So I don't know, so far in this group, the hunks are winning.
I gotta tell you, I think this is a very high achieving group because I'm not sure that's what's happening out there in the real world.
Oh no, some surgeries, and some are chunking and drunking, they're saying. So I'll leave it at that.
Listen, there's no judgment. We are all practicing self-care in whatever form. So let's think about this. The other thing you mentioned that I think was really important is this load on parents and children, right? And I think that obviously as employers, we think about this in terms of, who's taking time off and when are they able to work. But what about the relationships between parents, the relationships between parents and children? Like these are all things that are affecting the families of the people who work for you right now. What's the role of the employer in all this?
I mean, for us, I think it's about bringing in resources like Thrive, right, and family parity, and giving them tools to have a conversation about shared responsibility at home. This is unprecedented times, and there's cultural nuances. So if you're in a global world, the woman's role at home is defined in certain ways in India and other countries. But I think now you just got to say all bets are off in some ways with this pandemic, with digital learning. How do you supplement that? The care and feeding of the family. Like you're not going out to those restaurants. You can't bring the resources into your home, the cleaning. I know one of our executives actually got a whiteboard and he wrote down his chore list and he negotiated with all the family members, Eva, in his home. And they had a great debate with his children about who's clearing the tables when, who does laundry, how do they, well, that's not my laundry. Like they had this whole rumble, if you will, on care of the house. But that, he said, was one of the best outcomes of COVID, was learning how to negotiate the care of a home together.
Again, and Pat, you're bringing up such a great point. You know, a lot of it is the downside right now, but the other thing we're seeing is consciousness and intentional, and a chance for people to do new and different things. You know, one thing you did flag that I can't pass by is no assumptions on roles that can or can't be done by anybody. Again, it's the 100-year anniversary of women's right to vote, so we've been taking a look at the effect globally. Of course, that 100-year to vote is in the United States, but we are seeing the risk of a she-cession, so recession disproportionately affecting working women when there isn't that sit down, like Pat said, of how are we going to divide the tasks and where can we stretch up and carry different loads. And we're starting to see numbers already show up in terms of the share of new hires coming in, pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic, the leave rates, and also people opting for reduced schedules, part-time work, or volunteering to step out. So I think, you know, we're all trying to think very consciously about, before you take that on by yourself, are there simple tools, techniques, and approaches like Pat was sharing? Can all of our providers who've been with us for a long time, the Bright Horizons, the EAP lines, come up with brand new approaches that say, we don't want to lose this incredible talent? Can we have shifts in schedules and approaches that meet people where they are? Sometimes it's dependent on the age of their children. So, you know, as tough as this time is, it's also a time of innovation. And so one thing we're seeing, Chris, is employees leaning in who have certain skills to help others. We've seen a lot of use of technology to ask for volunteer mentors, after school coaching, all online, so that if you need help from 3 to 5, rather than just give up and say, I've got to leave the role, we do have people that are saying, you know, I don't have children in my home. I could release the time. I think it's really important to support my teammates. So we've been rallying folks in the workplace who feel that they want to and can give back. And even if you pick up an hour with a teenager to try to get them through high school online, that's so helpful to that working parent on tutoring them on, math or any other core subject. So we're collecting and inventorying all these creative ideas and trying to get them out in the ecosystem as fast as we can, so people aren't alone and they have to give up because their family doesn't have any resources that can enable them. I could talk for a long time about tech enablement and Wi-Fi, but I'm going to leave that for another question.
But that is such a great point in terms of it not just being a case of the employer producing programs for the employees, but coworkers helping each other, which is a very human and natural thing. And the fact that people are rallying to each other is absolutely fantastic. Now, we've been in this now for a number of months. Pat, you've been dealing this very directly with the workforce of a company that, from what I can tell, is busier than ever. So what kinds of things have you done over the course of this pandemic? How have you adjusted? What are things that you've learned as a result of going on in new kinds of programs, new kinds of policies that you've instituted?
We're still perfectly imperfect, Chris. We do surveys probably every 2 to 3 weeks on their health, physical and mental, what's working, what's not on their productivity. What are their struggles? How can we help them? What are their suggestions? And we mine those and we make adaptation. So we created a perk allowance just for COVID for wellness, mental and physical wellness. So they can do it for themselves and their family, like mindfulness apps or towards a Peloton or towards a tennis racket, something that gets them outside hiking, whatever it is for them and their families. We've added to that allowance for technology to serve their families if they have to do remote learning or divide and conquer and figure out their Wi-Fi or whatever they need to be doing. So we keep adding as we learn. So there's not one thing. I do think that what we need to be thinking about, that it's a marathon, is how do you provide more flexibility to be oriented towards work output, not hours attached to a video. Like there's real video fatigue. The intentionality of seeing your face, of being totally on and present, not getting up, that's more draining than if you would take a walk around the block on a phone call for that same amount of time. Believe it or not, and you're walking. So we have to think creative ways of teaching our employees how to do that, break up their workday, to be comfortable asking for those breaks. I do a lot more walking meetings and phone meetings. Nowadays I go, and I'm calling it old school, Eva. Let's do a phone call, old school. And then encouraging staycations and having fun contests. And we had, and also one last point that I thought was effective in our organization, we took the entire engineering team off on a Friday, just said, disconnect digitally, just recharge, have a long weekend. Because what we found is that if the whole team takes off, they have less anxiety of missing out on something and not, being there for their coworkers. So if you take small core teams and go, your day, your long weekend, go, just go, that gives them peace of mind. Some ideas.
That's such a great idea, because as you know, with their classically companies that have no vacation policies, what ends up happening is nobody takes vacation. And really stepping in and making sure that people are caring for themselves instead of just saying, well, they have the option to. I think that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. Now, the thing for companies like ServiceNow, which are doing better than ever, I just saw one of your ads in the NBA playoffs. You're helping people return to work. That's fantastic. But the reality is there's also companies that have seen revenue drops and layoffs. And one of the things that I think both you and Eva have been involved with is a very cool program called People and Work Connect. And I think it's a great example of how we hack COVID and try to make the world a better place. Maybe you guys can talk about that a little bit.
I'd like to start off and then hand it over. Almost at a session like this, Chris, in late March, there were chief HR officers and our CEO, Julie Sweet. At the end of the call, one person said, I had to lay off individuals who I found out are going to a shelter tonight. They, were part of a underserved community hiring program, and they don't have a home to go to. And there were about 36 of us on the call, and it just was such a clear call to action. Long story short, 4 of us convened that night and said, this is going to be unprecedented, huge. We also had vision that retail, hospitality, travel were going to get hit with layoffs at the 100,000 level, and that there were others. You can think of anyone in food delivery right now. So think of the Walmarts and the Amazons getting goods and services to the home that were going to go the other way. We took a 14-day period, heads down, and this is why I love this group, with no judgment of what would great look like. And what was born from that was a platform that said, anyone who wants to bring jobs and anybody who wants to bring impact workforces, we will host you. And Accenture, signed up to do the technology and hosting, and you'll have what we call a business-to-business contact. So that means that an individual, like a Marriott who's on the site, and it's all public, brought 100,000 impacted workforce, and a Walmart brought 100,000 jobs. And so the idea are Marriott transportation drivers, ready to go, certified and licensed to immediately jump into Walmart roles to get goods and services to homes. There's so much more to say, Chris, but the long story short is it is vibrant. We have over almost 483,000 roles on the site. We're in 82 countries. We have 196 active companies, and the country of Thailand was so impressed with the social innovation. They've adopted it as their country talent platform to be able to shift people with no boundaries across industry. In some cases, because of virtual work, you can go, across geography. And we're watching the patterns of people getting new opportunities they never would have gotten if we didn't have this sort of neutral connective site. So we're really excited, but you know, it's Pat and 3 other fellow CHROs that deserve all the credit. And over to you, Miss Pat.
Well, before we do that, just one quick question. Where do people go to access this phenomenal website? What's the URL?
Let's say People Plus Work Connect. It's hosted on Accenture, and I can post it over to you, Chris. So if you just go on Accenture.com, it's right there.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll post it in the chat. We'll find it. Somebody will. I'm saying somebody, in other words, not me. Somebody will find it and post it in the chat room as well. Pat, talk about this incredible initiative that you helped put together.
One, it's a privilege and an honor to be part of this co-creation. Eva's really humble. Gosh, you're a founding member of this, Eva. Don't just give it to us. I have a strong belief that we should not compete on talent as an organization, as a function. I think that companies should compete with their products and services. I think that every leader, including HR, and especially HR, needs to lead with compassion and care and teach the next generation, because these times create great opportunities for learning, for leadership and care. And it's our responsibility to do that. And I couldn't be more blessed to be part of this and learn along with all my other amazing individuals. And it's fascinating, those that are thinking about it, doing it right, even if they're doing a layoff or furlough, Chris, their engagement scores have gone up because they know that that employer cares about the talent even when they walk out their door. That to me is a talent brand I want to be a part of. That's an organization that puts people first. That's why we're having this forum. That's what's unique about this world. And if you can harness that globally, oh my gosh, think about what you can do and unlock talent, GDP in countries, underrepresented populations, women in the world that can't work out of the home. I mean, you just opened up a world of opportunity that I get goose chills, Eva.
And now I'm going to shamelessly plug myself because my co-author, Reid Hoffman, and I, we wrote a book along with our pal, Ben Kasnoka, called The Alliance. That's all about how important it is for employers to really build this partnership with their employees. And a big part of it is how your talent brand is really based around not just your current employees, but really your former employees, because they're the ones that people trust to tell the real story of what it's like to work at a company. And Reid and I recorded a podcast that you could find on, I think, his venture capital firm, Greylock's website. And we also put an essay out talking about honoring the Alliance during COVID-19. And this really is a phenomenal opportunity for people to make a strong impression, both on your current employees, as well as the people who are reacting to what's going on. The companies that do the right thing and really have that kind of trusting relationship with their employees, even if they have to lay people off. You saw this happen with companies like Carta, for example, or Airbnb, that undertook a lot of steps to try to make sure there was a softer landing, whether it was by making sure that they had vested their equity, or whether it was, like in the case of Airbnb, giving people a single day just to say goodbye without doing any other work. Those are the things that people will remember for a long time.
Chris, I have your book behind me, and I just think you're tapping into something. It's amazing. And by the way, you were way ahead of the curve. So, you know, you're tapping into something, though, that we were so busy, Pat and I and our team, on bringing up this connection, this platform, that I was talking to someone from the outside, and he goes, "This is social innovation at work." And so one of the things we've been chatting about is rather than always the downside, or you know, we're tolerating. I had someone call me recently about a phenomenon they didn't expect, which is it gives digital natives a chance to equally access, and they were talking about their internship program. A lot of companies canceled theirs. They had a big debate at this firm about whether it would be a quality experience, and there was almost a generational debate. Long story short, the internship is wrapping up. They did their scores and evaluation, but they also gave the interns a chance to be digitally visible. And a funny thing happened. One, the satisfaction was the highest of any class. Two, the visibility to these interns in the past might have been 200-300 people. It was over 10,000. Three, they're thinking about would they ever do it differently because it's been so highly effective. So a lot of times when we think about these connections for necessity, are they actually the future? And, necessity is a mother of invention. Like, what is better or more equalized or more accessible? And will we take some of the lessons of this really tough time and retain them and say, you know what, why can't people cross industry geography lines? I worked with a hospitality firm that had 40,000 housekeepers laid off. And they were struggling. And I said, every single hospital, every single essential retailer needs those workers, and they're trained at a very specific level. They were able to redeploy a large part of that number immediately. It just never crossed their mind that those are skills. Now, some of the skills I've been using, a lot of what I call, our frontline skills. We recently have seen engineers, marketing professionals, and finance professionals going to high essential businesses from businesses that are dampened right now. So I think, maybe your next book with Reed should be about like this breakthrough social innovation.
Well, I think that that's definitely something we want to cover. I mean, we're waiting for the stories to come out. Right now, we're just speculating, but maybe we should partner with you and Accenture and do a couple of pieces. We'll talk more about this afterwards.
And Pat. We got to have Pat.
Absolutely. And Pat and some of our other friends, Nancy, Vitaly, we'll go and get the whole gang together. So let me ask you guys this question. So here we are. It is the middle of August, and I really date the effect of this in the United States to that March 11th, that week when all of a sudden the NBA shut down, Tom Hanks has COVID-19. All of a sudden we took it seriously. So it's been basically 5 months. Now, as I look forward and think about when vaccines hopefully will arrive, my guess is we've got another 12 months of this to get through, almost 12 months. How are we going to make it through this marathon? How are you guys positioning yourself and getting yourselves into that marathon mindset?
Personally, for me, it is being intentional with how I spend my time, right? Blocking my family time as equally as important as I would a business call. Like I work where I live now. It's so blended, and there's some upside and downside of that. But I need to take care of self and family and others. And so I want to be more intentional. So I'm going to get better skills around that. Number one, for the marathon. Number two, I'm going to give myself permission every day to be imperfect. Every day I'm okay with just being a little less than where I needed to be, because it's still good. I'm directionally right. And if I know that, I won't stress as much and put so much burden on myself and the team. And then sharing that I can let some balls drop and role model that with my organization is really, really important. And being conscious of not sending those emails at night, on the weekends, checking in and listening. Don't talk. Like, just, Chris, did you have a great weekend? And just shut up, listen to you. And if you're working, I'm like, Chris, why don't you take your day off? Like, why don't you take that time to recharge? Like, that is my expectation, that we all take care of self, our family, and work. Because if we don't intentionally do it, we will use that commute time and continue to work. We'll be online all the time. We'll have expectations that even in the post-COVID world, I'm going to be 24/7. And that is not a realistic expectation. So you got to build the right habits now.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of research that showed that people are working more. Those people who have jobs, those people are working longer hours, spending more time on work than ever before.
Yeah. And they're doing, because they have nothing else to do. Right. And so these are teachable moments about how do you get up in the morning and make an amazing breakfast or check in with your family. Like, these are stories that you tell, and we learn from storytelling and modeling. So I think it behooves management leaders around the world to model what we think is a healthier way to be.
Awesome. Eva, you've got the big picture. What should we be doing over the next 12 months?
I think Pat said it a little bit earlier, but think about this idea of pace and sequence and innovation. I was listening, Pat, to, you are a role model of that, and so good about that boundary management. And when you signal that for others, It signals it for teams, cultures. So one of the things we're working with, Chris, is what's your furthest out imagination of the impact on your business, your organization? And so we're going to people's darkest fears and saying, okay, let's assume that's true. Let's assume it's 2 years. What would you keep? Is there anything you would stop doing? And then are there things that you need to start? So back to, we gave this problem to some college interns, and they said, it's time to bring back fun. And one of the things that they worked on with one of our creative teams is what would make these more fun? Use of music, imagery. You know, I've complimented you on your amazing art gallery behind you. We are seeing companies sort of express their culture that if we're going to be in a digital environment, can we have a beach day? You know, and everybody picks their favorite back screen shot. We play their favorite beach song. And these are simple things, but we also know, back to the point about the exhaustion of a video interaction, we're missing the humanness, and things that bring some pace and sequence are music, our color, our personal, the things we would have said if you and I and Chris were sitting in a studio together, that we want to try to bring back. The other idea is you can do anything for a short burst, but we know from human performance, even our body rhythms of our heartbeat, that you need that up and down period. So a lot of organizations are pacing, Pat just called about common breaks. The idea that, you know, don't ever take for granted is that we use humanity back in. We're seeing this. This is a marathon with, you know, we're forgetting the point that over 170,000 people have died. I have had 2 virtual funerals of friends' parents in the last 10 days. I personally missed my sister's wedding in Boston last weekend, Chris. We've been planning that for 2 years. I didn't miss it. I was virtualized. Are we really doing? And if it ends up being 12 to 18 months, even better. And can we create any
things. We're scheduled to go for about an hour, so I wanted to alert the people in the audience that they may want to start thinking about questions they want to ask these amazing ladies. We have a Q&A section, so you guys may. The first. So let's go personal. Indulgence help